Welcome back to Sandra Sells Tells, where we talk about real estate, real people, and real stories right here in the community and beyond. I'm your host, Sandra Smith from Gibson, Sotheby's International Realty. And as always, I love bringing on guests who help us better understand the many pieces of the real estate world. Today's episode is a great one if you've ever wondered how investment deals actually get funded or how investors move quickly in competitive markets. Joining me today is Randy Winters from Cutter Hill Capital, a private lending firm that works with real estate investors to fund projects ranging from renovations and flips to other investment opportunities. Private lending is a side of the business that many people don't fully understand, but it's often what helps investors move quickly and make deals happen. Today, we're going to talk about how private lending works, what investors should know before borrowing, what makes a deal attractive to lenders, and some of the biggest mistakes that Randy sees investors make. Randy, welcome to Sandra Sells Tells.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, excited to have you on here. So tell me a little bit about your background and how you got started into real estate investing.
I've been involved in real estate for probably 20 plus years in various capacities. About 13 or 14 years ago, I joined another lending company in the startup phases, doing similar work that I do now. And I was there for about 5 or 6 years and ultimately just had a sort of difference of opinion on how the business should be growing from that point forward. And I felt I had certain ideas about what would be good for myself, for borrowers, and I ultimately decided to move out on my own. So
is that what inspired you to start Cutter Hill Capital?
It is, yeah. So when I went out on my own, again, I had certain ideas about how a business should be structured to be successful, again, for myself and for borrowers. And I started Cutter Hill Capital about 7 or 8 years ago. And I've kind of been operating it my way, the way that I feel is kind of best suited for myself and attractive for borrowers.
I like that. For somebody unfamiliar, what exactly does private lending company do?
So we provide financing or loans for real estate investment projects. So typically it's going to be a project that's going to be for 12 months or less. So that's generally short-term in nature. And so we provide financing that assists with the purchase and the renovation of those types of projects. Typically it's going to be a single-family home or a small multifamily home, up to about 4 units. We do some commercial projects, but primarily residential type projects. So again, it's real estate investment projects where it's typically going to be short-term in nature, and we're able to provide the financing to help borrowers take advantage of those opportunities.
I love that. So like investors and flippers.
Yes.
People looking to get something quickly. So what would you say is the difference between private lending and traditional bank financing?
Timing, primarily. Timing. Right. So the word sort of hard money, which is the industry that we're in, hard money, the word hard is associated with the asset that's behind it. So in this case, it's a piece of real estate. So we focus more on the value of the property, both the current value and the after repair value. And we also focus on the economics of the deal. So we don't focus as much on a borrower's creditworthiness and dive too deeply into that information. We're more focused on what is the value of the real estate now, what will it be worth after the renovations, and can this borrower execute on that plan?
All right, that's great because bank financing, they're looking at their credit and their debt to income ratio.
Yes.
You guys are looking at are you going to make money on this and will you be able to pay me back?
Yes.
In a short time?
Yes.
More or less.
Yes. So it's the underwriting process that's a little bit more simplified and streamlined. And the timing piece also is very important because we're able to close deals. The quickest I've closed is probably 3 days.
No way. Wow.
And in that situation, the stars sort of align, but it's certainly possible. But typically our closing window is about 2 weeks, whereas conventional financing is 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. 30 is being, Doesn't always happen. It's
No,
it's usually
I've seen it.
45 to 60 days. But so I love that if somebody's interested in something and wants to do a private lender and have that cash up front and get this deal because they're planning on flipping it, you could do it in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right.
So it allows a borrower to submit a strong offer, meaning that they can close quickly. So a lot of these properties are in some distress, whether it be the seller or the condition of the property. But typically the owners of these properties, they want their money quickly.
Yes.
And if we can close quickly and offer and provide the borrower an opportunity to include that as part of their offer, it gives them a leg up on some other people.
Absolutely, for sure. So let me go back to a little bit about like the difference between you and a bank financing and what you're looking at. If somebody's interested in you, say I have, and I do have a flip coming up actually, and I've reached out to people I know that have investors like, hey, this is coming up. Are you guys interested?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, I need the money. What do you need from that borrower
typically
to approve them?
Yeah,
so
typically the first thing that I look for is I ask for what's the address of the property?
Yep.
How much you buying it for? What's your estimated renovation budget? And what do you think you'll sell it for?
Okay.
So I take all of that information and I'll do sort of my preliminary market analysis. And the biggest reason for doing that is making sure that we have an alignment. And alignment comes in the form of budget figures. If I look at the condition of the property and what they're trying to accomplish and look at what their budget is, I try to determine if that's a realistic budget for them to accomplish what they're trying to do. And secondarily is the after repair value. Do I believe that they can sell this property in the finished condition for what they think they can? And I want to make sure that we have alignment in both of those regards so that once we start the project and they're working through it, that we have the same vision and idea of what this project will look like.
Okay, and then so that happens, and you're like, okay, we're all aligned. This sounds good. We're going to lend you the money.
Yep.
Do you have a timeline that you're like, you need to pay it back by this time, or is it open-ended?
So we structure all of our loans for 12 months, but it comes with no prepayment penalty. So if you finish your project in 6 months, then you pay it back and we're done. So you have a 12-month window typically, unless we know the project is going to go a little bit longer, but most loans are structured for 12 months with no prepayment penalty.
All right, good to know. And what if they're not quite ready in 12 months and they've had, delays with contractors and subcontractors?
Yeah, no, that happens.
Yes, it does.
It does. So we sort of take it case by case. So I can look at a situation where maybe they need an extra month because they had some delays from contractors, and that's pretty simple. We'll provide an extension. But there's other situations where there's been some self-inflicted delays, and I can look at that and say, like, you're only halfway done with this right now. I'm not sure I want to be a part of this project moving forward. You should probably find another lender.
Okay. All right. If that happens in a situation like that, like how do they have to find another lender to get that money, then pay you back and start with that lender?
Correct.
Is that what you just want to make sure I understand?
Yeah, it's effectively a refinance with another lender who's willing to take on that project, in the current condition.
Okay. All right. Good to know. This is some great information. I want to note that you were saying, like, you're looking into it, like, what is this worth? What can it be worth with the flip and all of that? Of course, anybody can find information online. Some of it's reliable, some of it's not reliable. ChatGPT is just looking at the same stats other people are looking at.
Yep.
But you do have a real estate license as well, so you have more access to like the MLS and things like that. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, it's true. And I sort of, I've reviewed literally thousands of deals, and I can sort of in my head make adjustments if I'm looking at a comparable sale and I see that it might have an extra bedroom or the finishes might be a little better or worse. In my head, I can sort of make that adjustment and understand that I may not be perfect, but I'm close enough, and that's
awesome.
That's what I'm looking for.
Awesome. So are investors flipping, renting, or holding properties lately?
I think there's still plenty of people who are flipping, which means you buy, renovate, and sell the property.
Yep.
But there's also a lot of people who are buying, renovating, and holding for rental purposes.
Okay.
There's such a demand for rental properties currently that I think a lot of people are seeing that as a good way to sort of do some long-term financial planning for themselves, build equity into those properties. And And so there's been a bit more of that.
So if they're holding on to it to rent it, how are they paying you back?
They'll refinance with a conventional loan at that point. So they'll take on, a 30-year loan or whatever it is at that point.
So they basically got the money to start the renovation process and get the offer and get the win.
Yes.
And then they're like, hey, wait, this could be a good rental. I want to hold on to it. And then they'll get a mortgage.
Yes. At that point, when the property is fully renovated and, possibly it's been, tenanted with, with a tenant in place, and you can go to a bank at that point with a much stronger case for long-term financing. It's a lot easier to do that than to go to the bank up front and say, I've got this dilapidated property. True. I would need to renovate it, and then I need to rent it out. Will you give me a loan for that? And they're not as excited for that type of scenario. They're excited to take on a fully renovated property with a tenant in place.
Right. Yeah, true. Very good. All right. So are you seeing any trends in the investment market right now in our area?
One thing that I've seen a lot of recently is that the way that investors and borrowers are looking to add value often comes on larger projects, meaning new construction, or taking an existing property and doing a large addition to it, or something along those lines. So the projects tend to be a little bit bigger in some cases because the sort of straightforward cosmetic flips these days are harder to find. And the economics behind those are not as strong as they used to be.
True.
And the best way to add value is sometimes taking on these larger projects.
Okay. What are some red flags you see that make you pass on a deal?
I mentioned before alignment. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty good at what I do.
Yep.
And if I see that we have a misalignment from the beginning,
yep.
To me, I will have that conversation with that person and try to see if I'm interpreting things differently than they are. But if we just don't really see eye to eye on what this project could be, for me, that's a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. What would you say the biggest mistake you see investors make?
Not knowing your numbers. People use this phrase all the time. Know your numbers. Know your numbers.
Yep.
Are you buying it at a good value? Is your renovation budget reasonable for what you're trying to accomplish? Is your projected sale price reasonable for what this market can support? Know your numbers. And again, if your numbers don't add up to an economically viable deal, you're putting yourself in a pretty bad situation from the get-go.
Yeah, very true. What should someone have ready before approaching a private lender? Back to know your numbers.
Yeah. Honestly, I when someone provides me, I mentioned what the information is I'm looking for initially, property address. What are you buying it for? What's your renovation budget? What are you selling it for? I want to know that person's done some analysis on the deal. I want to know that they've picked out a handful of comps that would support what they're trying to sell it for. I want to know that they've had their budget reviewed if they're not a contractor themselves, or they've had a general contractor review the budget and make sure that it's reasonable for what they're trying to accomplish. So I want to know that they've done a little legwork beforehand.
Right, before they just call you. So if somebody's brand new, thinking about, I want to do this flip, I've got this great opportunity, whether they inherited the house or their neighbor's selling it, they know it could be a great flip or investment property. Where do they start?
I think for their purposes, they need to make sure they understand what they're getting into from a renovation standpoint. Yeah,
because a lot of people think it's going to be easy, and it is so much more, and it can be a Pandora's box on some of these older ones.
Once you open up some walls and you see what's behind some of those walls.
Or not behind them.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, you've got to be prepared for a contingency. You've got to make sure that if you're not a contractor by trade, that you have someone come in and verify some of the numbers that you're looking at. Because that is where a project can kind of go off the rails a little bit. It goes way over budget, takes longer. If you don't have a reliable contractor, it's knowing that you have those relationships and kind of verified some of those numbers along the way. And
I 100 wholly agree with you on that, because I've seen that in the real estate world, where it's like people are like, real estate's the way to make money. Got to have some investment properties. I can do this. That's easy. I've done this or that. I worked with my dad.
Yep.
But you really have to have the right people in place. And if you're not a licensed contractor, make sure you know somebody that can be there and help you and give you that advice, because it can be so much more than what they think it is.
I often find people who are new to the investing side of real estate that they will partner with someone who complements their skill set, meaning, if you're a general contractor and you found a good opportunity, you probably need to work with someone who's got some money.
Yeah.
And if you have someone who has some money that wants to put it to use in real estate investing, but you don't have contractor background, find someone who does have that background and partner with them. So they often find like complementary skill sets and go into these projects, as a partnership.
Yeah. Good advice right there. So what would you say has been one of the most unusual deals that you have funded?
I try to keep things pretty straightforward. So there's not a lot that I would say that would be a unique one. I think one of the things that I've enjoyed that has happened on a few of the projects that I've worked on is that sometimes the end buyer, in one case, the end buyer was a fairly prominent former Red Sox player. Another buyer was a fairly prominent actor who lives on the South Shore in the summertime.
Okay.
Another project I worked on, the Dropkick Murphys used as part of their music video that they were filming. So we're in the demolition stage of that project, and they needed a place where they could break things, literally.
Wow.
And so they used this
gosh.
pre-demolition home for their music video, where they could take some bats to the walls and use it as part of their music video they were producing.
Oh my gosh. When I said unusual or interesting, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And you were part of that.
Yeah.
And you can say that. Oh my gosh. Those of you listening should know who Dropkick Murphys are.
Yeah.
If you don't, look it up. But that's exciting to say that, that was part of it and you helped out with that. And you never know. You never know what somebody's going to come to you and ask you for this private lending and for what they're going to do with it. Yeah. So do you know what they did with it after they did their video? Did they flip it or sell it to somebody?
It was a flip. Yeah, it was a flip.
Wow.
So the relationship with the Dropkick Murphys happened. They live in the town where the project was taking place.
Yeah,
and
so they knew the area.
They knew what was going on, and they knew the developer. And they're like, hey, do you have any place that we can go break things? And he's like, yeah, I have a house that's about to go under demolition right now. So have at it.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So is there a project that surprised you, either good or bad?
There has been a couple that, the borrower sort of shifted gears mid-project, meaning that they started to take on, a much bigger project than they anticipated. And, in those situations, I'll provide a certain amount of money, but if you want to go above and beyond because you've changed your mind, we can consider a modification to the loan, but oftentimes you're coming out of pocket for those changes. But, in those situations, I'll certainly provide, my advice and thoughts on it. But it's often worked out for them when they've taken on, a little bit more of a risk in expanding the scope of work.
That's good to know. That's good to know. What's the worst deal you've ever seen someone try to convince you to fund?
I'll say this not in a way to discourage people from contacting me, but I turn down more deals than I fund.
Do you? Okay.
And I tell people that I want to provide feedback, a second set of eyes on what they're trying to do. Because I've reviewed so many projects and funded so many projects, my experience, I think, can be beneficial to people. So in that sense, again, if we don't have alignment on something, then, oftentimes I will turn that down. If I take on a project that ends up going a little south, that occupies way more of my time than funding more deals. So I try to make sure that the borrower is in the best position to be successful. So it makes my life easier, it makes their lives easier. And that is a
good business practice.
I try not to take on projects where there's, unnecessary risk, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. So if somebody wanted to reach you, and do some private lending or just get more information, how do we reach you?
The website, certainly the best avenue. The website has all my contact information, but the website is cutterhillcapital.com.
cutterhillcapital.com. So that has all your information. and what the process is. Is that what's on there?
Yes, there's a form you can fill out to begin a request for a new loan, as well as a summary of the different types of loans we offer and sort of the best fits for those types of loan products.
All right, great. So different loan products to check out and investigate. So if you're thinking about it and you want to invest and you want to do a flip or rental property, whatever you want to do, but you want to do it quick, this is your guy. Check out the website. One other question is, are you all over New England, all over the South Shore? Like, what is your territory?
So I would say officially we cover all of Massachusetts, as well as some of the bordering states in New England, because I've done projects in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut. But primarily we do stay in Massachusetts, and simply because of the relationships that I have, I do a lot on the South Shore and in Cape Cod. But we've done stuff all over Massachusetts and some of those other areas as well.
Excellent. So you had started Cutter Hill, as we said in the beginning. Do you have people that work under you?
I run my business independently.
Excellent.
I run my business independently.
So you're doing well then.
It's nice. I'm in charge. If something goes wrong, it's my fault.
You can only yell at yourself.
So it's nice. It provides me some flexibility in my work-life balance. I can never really get away because I can't hand anything off to anyone else, but I'm able to operate from a lot of different areas.
And that's like real estate. I say if things are slow, book a trip, right? Because as soon as you book that trip, everybody wants you and they're ready to go. Like, let's go.
Right.
So if things start slowing down, I'm like, oh, time to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of both of our professions, that we can work pretty much from anywhere because a lot of it is online.
Yes.
And on the phone, and we're doing that. In my business, I might have to show up, but I have colleagues that can cover for me if I'm not there. But that's good to know. So you're pretty much available. If your boss is being a jerk, you just look in the mirror and straighten yourself out.
I do. This is one way where I try to differentiate myself from competitors in the marketplace.
Okay.
Is that when you work with me, you are working with me. I'm with you every step along the way. It's a single point of contact for the entire loan process. So you're not getting handed off to different departments along the way. You call me, you text me. It's always going to be me. And, I'll come and meet you at the project for a construction draw or a site inspection. So I'm managing all of it. And I think for a borrower's purpose, when they feel like they can have a relationship with somebody, and they have the support of that person, sometimes they're willing to even pay more for that because it simplifies their life. It's
very true. It's a very valid point that I know a lot of people appreciate and take into consideration is just you're their one point of contact because you're the first person that they talk to when they're going through this process. And if they have questions, it's hard to call companies and you can't ever get the person and they send you to this department or they send you to this person or this team member. People like that. They like the one point of contact. So I think that's huge for you.
Yeah.
One more question before we wrap it up. Private lending. So I'm going to assume that the interest rate is higher than if you did a traditional mortgage. Is that correct?
Yes. So they're going to be higher. Typically, we charge about 11%. Okay. What I tell people is that, yes, that number seems a little scary just on paper. But when you're considering that you're only doing it for a year or less, not 30 years, the actual monetary difference is much smaller than what you think it might be.
Yeah, it can be, but it also can get you into what you need to do and your next project.
Yes, there's there's an opportunity cost that comes with taking advantage of unique investment opportunities.
Absolutely. So I always end my podcast with a key of the week. And this week, after interviewing you and learning more about private lending, my key of the week is this. Access to capital is important. But the real key is having the solid plan before you borrow it. Successful investors know their numbers, their timeline, and their exit strategy before they even apply for funding. Hopefully, right?
True.
The money helps make deals happen, but the strategy is what makes them successful. So your key of the week is access to capital is important, but the real key is having a solid plan before you borrow it. And everything that Randy shared with us is pretty much that.
Very well put.
Have that solid plan. Get it in place, talk with Randy, discuss it, See if the numbers all align, because alignment is huge.
Absolutely.
And if the timeline will work.
Yes.
So that's fabulous. So, Randy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Sandra, for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, sharing your insights into the world of private lending and real estate investing has been super helpful. And I know there's people out there hopefully listening and subscribing to learn more, but hopefully they'll reach out to you if it's something that they consider. I know I have you in my Rolodex, if we all still have one of those, but you know what I mean by that. You are in my phone so that I can share your information with investors that, really want to get in on a deal.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's always fascinating to hear about the different pieces behind the scenes that help real estate deals come together. I hope today's conversation gave you a little more insight into the financing of real estate. If you enjoyed this episode of Sandra Sells and Tells, be sure to follow, subscribe, and share with someone that might find it helpful. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or even exploring real estate, investing here on the South Shore, I'm always happy to connect. Until next time, this is Sandra Smith reminding you that real estate is more than houses. It's the people, the stories, and the communities we all call home.